Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Primetime Fantasy Podcast. But we're going to talk about some of the free agency moves that happened this past week. A lot of the big deals have already been done. Besides Jadeveon Clowney, I can't imagine another big free agent that's going on here. But because we're a fantasy podcast, we're going to talk about the skill positions, some of the offense mostly. So we got 7 free agents and then 1 player involved in a trade that we want to talk about today. With me, as always, is my co-host, Nick. Say what's up.
Hey, Garrett, what's up? Happy to be here.
All right. He's joining us via phone, via call.
Social distancing, Garrett. Social distancing.
Hey, that's right. That's right. So we have him on the line, and let's just get right into it. The first player we're going to talk about is Tom Brady. This is the big fish of the sea. Went from New England to Tampa Bay. He's going to sign a 2-year, $50 million deal. I find it hard to imagine he'll stay through to next year, but he said he's ready to play till like 50. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So we're just going to go through each player. We're going to talk about whether we love it or hate it. For Tom Brady, I love this move. The more I think about him in Tampa Bay, the more I love it. I made a other video on this, and I just think it's a good move for him based on the offense he surrounds himself in. Bruce Arians is on the complete opposite side of Bill Belichick when it comes to how he runs his team. So I think from a practice standpoint, it's kind of a refreshing mindset for him. And then with the offensive weapons like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, I think O.J. Howard's going to become a whole new element in this offense. Even Ronald Jones was starting to pick up production as the year went on. I think this is a great move for Tom Brady. And I think his fantasy ceiling is QB1. Honestly. So, yeah, Nick, how do you feel about this deal?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this is great, both for, trying to win a championship and for fantasy reasons. Tom Brady played in a pretty pedestrian offense, so it wasn't really a big impact on fantasy. I think this year, with the weapons that you said he has, I think he will be QB1, and I think he's going to have a really good year in fantasy.
I agree.
Player's name, I love Chris Godwin, the impact for Chris Godwin, and I love O.J. Howard here. I think these are the 2 guys that will have the biggest positive impact here. I think Mike Evans will probably fall behind Chris Godwin as far as production-wise. But like you said, I think this is an offense, but I think it was a great signing by Tampa Bay, and it'll be great for Tom Brady.
I agree. Do you think that Mike Evans could, well, I don't know, did he re-sign with the Tampa Bay?
I think I'm looking in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he's still on a contract. I'm pretty sure he just signed a recent contract, so I don't think he signed a deal anytime soon.
Well, right. I didn't know if he was still on his rookie deal, so if they look to move him elsewhere, because signing both Chris Godwin and Mike Evans might be costly for that team. So
yeah, but as it stands now, they can afford it, and I think that's going to be they will have a top 3 offense if they healthy. And I think they'll be great for fantasy.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's just talk about the money real quick here. Are you surprised it was only $25 million a year? Because all the reports were that he was going to get, he wanted $30 million a year. I'm surprised it's only, I know it's fully guaranteed, but I'm surprised it's only $50 million over 2 years.
I think you have to look at the fully guaranteed money when it comes to these deals. Which it's kind of the number I expected was around 25 to 30 million a year. For a team that he wants to go to and win, like if he thinks he's going to win with that team, I imagine that a pay cut wouldn't be like the most surprising thing for him. I think he was only making like $2 million a year and then some incentives on top of that over in New England with the deal he signed. So yeah, this pretty big upgrade for him, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
All right. Next player we're going to get into is Phillip Rivers. We both called this move from the Los Angeles Chargers to the Indianapolis Colts. A 1-year, $25 million deal. Looking at a swan song for Phillip Rivers because last year he looked like he was throwing some medicine balls. Not the strongest arm in the world. But we'll have to see how he does in Indianapolis. Maybe he becomes a mentor for Jacoby Brissett. How do you like this deal in terms of fantasy numbers?
Well, I don't think he's that much of an upgrade as far as going from Jacoby Brissett to Phillip Rivers. So the impact on the offense, I don't think is going to be noticeable. I think it's almost like a scratch here. What do you think, Garrett?
I would agree with that. I don't think Philip Rivers is a guy that I would want to start every single week. I think he's more of like a matchup-based guy.
And just sorry for cutting you off, but as far as like T.Y. Hilton, the deep threat in that offense, Philip Rivers doesn't have the offense. I think this will hurt T.Y. Hilton. What do you think?
I don't know if it'll hurt him. I mean, yeah, he's a deep threat, but he also has a lot of run after catch ability, which I think he's the best run after catch receiver on that team. And you got to think about Eric Ebron signed elsewhere, so there's that too. Although he didn't really have much of an impact this past year, so I mean, yeah, you're kind of right when it comes to a scratch, but I don't think this would hurt the receivers in any way.
Do you think overall team success the Colts will be better, or do you think they will be pretty much the same?
I have no idea. I gotta see like week 1 and 2 from Philip Rivers before I make a case on that, because Rivers looked bad in Los Angeles last year, and I don't know if that was because he was just
upgrading offensive line. That'll help, but I just don't know if he's going to be. I think he's over the hill as far as his talent. We both suggested that he should retire, but
yeah, and I don't know if it was a lack of motivation when he played for the Chargers, and that now like he's kind of rejuvenated with this team, but I don't know. We'll just have to see how that goes.
Yep.
All right, next player we're going into is Teddy Bridgewater, going from the New Orleans Saints to the Carolina Panthers on a 3-year, $63 million deal. $33 million is guaranteed, so that's over half. I think Bridgewater's numbers will be higher than, obviously they'll be higher than they were because he wasn't a full-time starter last year, but a lot of that offense is ran by Christian McCaffrey. Granted, he gets a lot of the pass catches as well, so that'll help Bridgewater as well. But I don't know if Bridgewater's a guy that, I don't know if his stock goes up that much higher than what it was.
No, and we were talking on the last podcast we did. I was saying I think Teddy Bridgewater should have stayed in New Orleans. I'm never going to kill a guy he took $33 million guaranteed, so it's good for him. But I think as far as overall success, this is a rebuilding team. Their defense is completely gutted. People are almost forgetting that Luke Kuechly retired this year. The whole team is gutted. I don't see him being very successful, and I think he's kind of like that bridge quarterback. And I think Carolina will ride him for a year or two, and then I think they'll move off Teddy Bridgewater, which I kind of feel bad for him in that case.
Right. I wonder if I was wondering if they were going to try to make a move for Tua, or even Justin Herbert, just to try to see if they can get at least somebody, to back up Bridgewater, because Kyle Allen's not the guy. And you can't depend on McCaffrey to run the offense forever. Running backs in this league usually have a 6-7 year shelf life before they're done, and he's a bell cow, so he's taken a large portion of that offense.
Yeah, I think McCaffrey will still be fine. In fact, he probably could increase McCaffrey because Teddy Bridgewater is an upgrade over Kyle Allen. I just think as far as fantasy-wise, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is going to be a reliable starter in fantasy. He's not a volume thrower. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's a smart quarterback, but he's not going to be like Jameis Winston throwing 40 times a game,
I agree. If Cam Newton's still on the team, does he start over Cam Newton?
Oh, yeah, guaranteed.
Okay.
Cam Newton's probably going to get cut within the next, week or two. If they can't find a trade partner, I don't see any way that relationship goes on. They just signed $22 million a year, basically, $21 million actually. And Cam Newton's just a sitting duck. He's going to be cut if they can't trade him.
Right.
But I don't think that relationship's repairable now. Cam Newton wouldn't want to go back as the backup quarterback. That's just not what he would want to do.
Right. He's good enough to be a starting quarterback in this league. But another thing to think about, I think his relationship, the damage is mostly with management rather than the coaching staff. We have Matt Rule, who's a brand new NFL head coach coming into this league. So, and now that I think about it, he's probably not going to want to play for him just because he's a rookie head coach in this league. So there's that as well.
Right.
All right. Moving on to the next player, Austin Hooper, who's a tight end, was very reliable for the Atlanta Falcons last year, became the highest paid tight end, going to Cleveland for 4 years, $42 million. I believe 18.5 of that is guaranteed. I I could. I'm probably reading the wrong number, but yeah, I was. So I think 23 million of that is guaranteed. Regardless, he was great in Atlanta this past year. I don't know if he replicates that with Cleveland. What do you think?
I agree with you here. I think they're overpaying for Austin Hooper. I think he's a good player, but he was a huge part of that Atlanta Falcons offense. I don't know, back up here they got Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb is going to get his carries, and I think it's a downgrade at quarterback. I think you're right here, Garrett. It is not a great fantasy move for Austin Hooper.
And it's a huge blow to a guy like David Njoku, who was doing somewhat all right for a tight end last year, and now his numbers are going to go severely down. Or Austin Hooper's numbers are going to go. I mean, Hooper's numbers will go down regardless, I think. But right. Now they kind of have to share the workload between those two tight ends, and I don't know if Cleveland's going to run a 2 tight end offense. We'll have to see with that.
Yep, I think Hooper will get drafted, highly this year. But I still wouldn't want him over, the top 3 to 4 tight ends. I still would want the Kelce's, the Kittles, and even Zach Ertz over him.
Right. I think he falls more of the 5th or 6th best tight end rather than the number 1 where he ended at last year.
Yeah, and I think people will draft him high because they know how consistent he was last year. But I would be a little bit afraid because he's downgrading quarterbacks. There's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. It's going to be. I think it's almost a lock that his numbers will go down this upcoming year.
Yep, I would bet the under. Moving on to our next player, Emmanuel Sanders went from the San Francisco 49ers. He was there for half the year. Now he's going to the New Orleans Saints on a 2-year, $16 million deal. I believe that's fully guaranteed. I'm not sure. We'll have to see about that. But this is a guy who put up good numbers in the San Francisco offense. Was a good part of their Super Bowl run, and I think he's going to become a very reliable number 2 in the New Orleans offense with Drew Brees and Michael Thomas opposite him. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. I was texting back and forth with you the other night when he signed, and I actually love this this signing for him. Michael Thomas is an elite wide receiver. He's never had a reliable number 2. He's going from Jimmy Garoppolo, who is good in accuracy, to Drew Brees, who's an excellent accuracy. This is what Emmanuel Sanders is, that guy that's going to run a bunch of short to intermediate patterns, and to have the most accurate quarterback in NFL history throwing the ball. I love this for Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, and part of me wonders, because Drew Brees was not looking good near the end of that year, whether that stock kind of goes down for both Thomas and Sanders. But I think that's something you're just going to have to consider once the year starts. He's still a starting.
And it's also important to note that Michael Thomas when a defense game plans against the Saints, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, those guys are going to draw a lot of attention. Emmanuel Sanders is going to have his opportunity to shine, and I think if he stays healthy, what he's had trouble doing recently, because he is coming off 2 years ago, he had that ACL injury, and he is over the age of 30. So if he can stay healthy, he's going to have enough opportunities to be successful in this offense.
Right, he is a ceiling of being a high-end wide receiver too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, moving on to our last signing, Todd Gurley of the Los Angeles Rams, formerly, got cut and now is signed with the Atlanta Falcons on a 1-year, $6 million deal, fully guaranteed. And I'm partially excited for this deal, and I'm also kind of like, because Todd Gurley, arthritis in his knees, you worry about. He's not going to be the bell cow back with this team. He just doesn't have that kind of potential. And I don't know how much they're going to include guys like Ito Smith, or whether they're going to draft another guy in the draft this year. So that's something we'll have to point out too. So I don't know if I like Todd Gurley as much as I did, 2 years ago, drafting him with the number 1 pick.
Right. I think we'll have to see where he gets drafted this year. It's way too early. We'll have to see where he's ranked and where he gets drafted. But I think Todd Gurley, at best, he's a touchdown-dependent running back. You have to have those touchdowns. He's no longer a high-volume running back. He can't, rush 20 times a game. We talked about this last year. He did get his touchdowns this last season, and you're going to need those touchdowns this year if he's going to be productive in fantasy football. As far as the NFL goes, I don't know what Atlanta's doing here. Obviously they're taking a shot here, but Todd Gurley's got a very bad knee. I don't think it's ever going to get back to where it was. I think Todd Gurley right now is washed good. So I'll go with that.
Yeah, I would agree. And the thing, just talking from a football perspective, the Falcons need more help on defense than they do on offense. So I don't know why this is like one of their top priorities within the first week of free agency, or if it was like a gut like a knee-jerk reaction to go sign him, to a deal since he.
It's important to note that Gurley went to college at the University of Georgia. I don't know, what the motivation behind the signing was. For him, it's probably to go home, but for Atlanta, I don't know if this is. We signed Todd Gurley, sell tickets, sell jerseys, but I don't know if this is great for winning.
I agree. All right, moving into the last player of the day. DeAndre Hopkins was traded from the Houston Texans to the Arizona Cardinals. I believe it was Hopkins in a 4th rounder for David Johnson, a 2nd and a 4th rounder. So essentially Hopkins for David Johnson in a 2nd rounder when you consider the swap of the 4th rounders. But regardless, talking about the fantasy impact of DeAndre Hopkins, I think this is a great deal for him. And I think he's someone who's going to end up shining in the Arizona offense. Kyler Murray started to get going as the year went on. Obviously, those first 4 or 5 weeks weren't the best, but as he got more adjusted to the Cliff Kingsbury offense, he played better. And that was with Larry Fitzgerald and a bunch of scrubs. And now he's going to have DeAndre Hopkins for the next 2 to 3 years. I'm excited for what this does for Kyler Murray and for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, when I think of Hopkins, you think of, at least for me personally, I think of elite consistency. He's always going to produce. You're never really worried that he's going to put up a 3 for 30 week. I think it's a downgrade at quarterback, and that's no shot at Kyler Murray. It's just that Watson a notch better. But in this Cliff Kingsbury offense, they went out and got Hopkins. They're going to have a plan for Hopkins. They have weapons around him. I don't think defenses will be able to key in on Hopkins every week because they have a lot of weapons. I'm excited to see how he produces there. I don't think he takes a hit, but I do think it's a small downgrade at quarterback. But again, he's elite consistency, and he's still a high-end wide receiver one for me. I
would agree with that. Any notes on David Johnson to the Texans?
Well, if he's healthy and he's not battling any injuries, I think he can be a productive fantasy running back. But and I think the Texans are being poorly run. That was a terrible trade. One of the worst trades we've seen in a long time.
I agree.
There was reports that they were teams in the late first round were offering their first round pick for Hopkins, and they decided they were going to take a pick in the 40s and that is very talented, but he often injured, can't stay healthy. I don't know what the Texans are doing, but if David Johnson's healthy, I think he's the starting running back. Obviously, they went out and got him. They're paying him his full salary, so they have plans for him. Watson's still an elite quarterback. They have a couple of good receivers. I still think this offense can be productive, but it all comes down to, is David Johnson healthy, and where are you drafting him? I would not want to draft him in the first 2 or 3 rounds with this uncertainty.
Yeah, honestly, my kind of where I expect him to be, I expect him to be more of a flex player than a running back 1 or 2. Johnson's last good year was like in 2016, 2017, and that, might not seem too long ago, but that was forever ago. And he's just had
a long time.
Yeah, and he's had injuries to his wrist and other bones in his body. And it just hasn't really worked out since then. They gave the Arizona Cardinals gave the transition tag to Kenyon Drake, so obviously they expect him to be the number 1 guy, and they played him a lot more than they did David Johnson. So obviously they expect they think that Kenyon Drake's better. Which, if you're worse than Kenyon Drake, I don't know if I can trust you too much. But what?
But the thing about this, Garrett, is before they traded for Kenyon Drake, David Johnson was losing carries to Chase Edmonds, and he lost the job to Chase Edmonds midway through the year. Before the trade deadline, they had to go out and get a guy, and they went out and traded for Kenyon Drake, which was great for them. But, this is what it's important to note about David Johnson. He lost his job to Chase Edmonds. And a lot of people out there don't know who Chase Edmonds is. If you don't, I don't blame you. He's rotational back. He's not special at all. So it's important to note that this very talented guy lost his job to a less talented player, I guess you could say.
And I think he's the highest paid running back in the league. Like, I think
I would think Bell is a little bit higher paid, but he's one of the 3 highest paid running backs. I think he's like $10.5 million a year. Is a lot of money for an injury-prone older running back.
Yeah, and he like the top 3 are him, Bell, and Ezekiel Elliott. And he like the more I think about this, the more I just don't like the idea of David Johnson. All right.
Yeah, that'll be it for this podcast. It's a little bit of a shorter podcast, but me and Garrett will probably come up with something for the NFL draft. Maybe we'll do like a live stream thing for the draft. We'll let you guys know at a later date. But anything else you want to add, Garrett?
No. We might make another one of these videos because there's some running backs and tight ends and wide receivers we didn't even talk about, and there's some receivers that have yet to sign. So guys like Eric Ebron and Melvin Gordon have already signed. So maybe we'll make another video on that in the coming weeks. We're definitely going to do another mock draft, whether that's live streamed or another video podcast. We'll have to see how that goes. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited that the NFL is still going, especially since no other sports have decided to continue moving. Yeah, this has been fun. Thank you guys for listening as always, and we appreciate your support. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.